Welcome back to Full Measure Farm. Today I'm going to be opening up our row out here in the garden that has lettuce and cilantro and beets, and we are going to be filling that in. It's been a work in progress, but the first bed of the year for us is always just a mixture of whatever we need to get out of the greenhouse and whatever can handle that cold weather. So come along today as you watch me weed, fill some trays, and get this bed planted. And we're going to talk about some different ways to protect those plants, but also what to do in case you lose them, and a favorite little thing of mine called insurance planting. So come along and watch this. Welcome to our channel, Full Measure Farm Michigan. We hope you enjoy learning along with us on our small-scale production farm. Pasture-raised lamb, chicken, and eggs, organic produce, sourdough bread, and more are all things we will cover here, along with how to include your children in your farm life and still get things done. We hope you enjoy these videos and consider subscribing. In this video, the weather looks ideal for spring planting. It is sunny, it's fairly warm, and the day is simply beautiful. But let me assure you, the days leading up to this and directly following it were very nasty. I'm taking off the covers here, but you guys can see on the right side, there is plastic laying between these hoops and the other hoops. I had the plastic on over the hoops and continually it was blowing off. So we just decided to scrap that. But it happened on a day when it was about 15 degrees, blowing, sleety, snowy weather. And I just counted all the plants underneath as a total loss. I was so disappointed, but the weather cleared up and lo and behold, they actually came back. I was really surprised. So that gave me faith to just keep going and keep planting. So I used the thin wire hoops that you see in the picture. They're smaller on the lower side of the metal hoops. And I simply used that with about a 50% light transmission row cover. And that's all I have on there, held down by many, many bricks. For me, the bricks work the very best for holding down the row cover. They seem to grip to it pretty well, and I can put a lot of them down the whole way along the side. So there's a lot of reasons that you may want to get out there before the weather is ideal and start planting. Some of the reasons might be that your plants are getting root bound, you are running out of space in your greenhouse, or crunch time is coming when you know that you will need to be planting those warm weather crops. And those will be needing to get out and you won't have time to put out things that may be able to handle some colder, nastier weather right now. For me, there are only about 5 crops that seem to do well out underneath row cover, and that is lettuce, cilantro, kale, onions, and spinach. Spinach I gave up a long time ago because it just seems to bolt so quickly it's not worth my time. But the plants you see out here in this bed are the lettuce, cilantro, and kale. I had also included some beets. Those can be very touchy with the frost. To me, those are the ones that if anything will get hit by the frost and not do well, it is the beets. If you've planted some of these crops out in the garden and had them get hit by a frost, some of the things that are a factor in that and them coming back or not is whether or not the sunlight will hit them when they are still frosty or even frozen. So one of the things that the row cover does is not only adds 5 to 6 degrees of protection from frost and cold weather, it also provides them shade and lets them thaw out slowly. And that is one of the key factors to success when you are putting out somewhat sensitive leaf vegetables like this that you may notice will die with a hard freeze or frost unprotected, but they seem to have this amazing ability to come back under row cover. And that is the frost factor with the shade, helping it to thaw out slowly. As I go down the row planting these plants, I am just weeding right along my way. There is grass coming up through here and some other weeds. So in the fall, previous to this, we also had lettuce and green onions in this bed. And we really hesitate to till the bed, so we're pretty much strictly no-till. So this spring, all I did was kind of do a rough weeding, rake it smooth, and then I just put compost right on top of that, raked that smooth, and went right into it with my new seedlings for this year. So it may not be the most beautiful looking bed, but it's going to work just fine, and it's giving me the ability to get these plants out. It kind of looks like a patchwork quilt of plants, but I do have kale going right down the middle, and that is going to stay all summer. So the other plants I will be pulling or cutting and selling, and the kale will stay as a permanent crop, and I will be replanting along the sides, probably with beets or maybe more lettuce and green onions. This bed took me about 3 or 4 days to get planted. I had my little helper with me, Judah, during the first day, and he kept wanting to eat the cilantro and lettuce as I went along. So I would be planting and repeatedly hear yummy, and I would look behind me and he was snatching off leaves of the little plants. So he was having the time of his life, and I'm always happy to see him have an appetite for good, healthy food, but it was slowing me down a little bit. It was like 2 plants forward and a plant back. So today, while he was napping, he took a 2-hour nap, which is pretty unheard of for him. I felt like super mama, and I was out there just planting for all I was worth, and I got the bed totally wrapped up. I got most of my lettuce from this seeding planted out, and I was just super happy with what we got done. The lettuce, I tried to do about a 72 cell tray every week. So that fills our market needs pretty much. Obviously, all of those heads are not market quality by the end of when they're ready to harvest, but that pretty much gets us close. I would say between the different varieties we do, we have a nice staggered harvest of lettuce over the whole summer when I do one of those trays a week. In this bed, we have romaine and we have new red fire lettuce, and those are pretty cold hardy. There's a couple other of the butter heads that I would not have put out at this time of year, but the romaine and the crisp head, the new red fire, seem to do really well in this weather. Let's talk a little bit about the thing I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I call it insurance planting, but it's simply looking out for yourself a little further down the road in case you would lose a crop. A good friend of ours mentioned this when I asked when he plants things out. He said, well, I do it now, and it's usually fine, but I know that in the greenhouse, I've already started a planting that's only a couple weeks behind this one, and it will be ready to go just in case things happen. And I latched onto that idea. I absolutely love it. I do it every year for various crops. It's simply the thought of planting extra in enough quantity that you would be able to replace what either got frosted out in the field or you lost to bug damage or plant disease. I have never regretted having those extra plants in the greenhouse ready to go either. I almost always use them, but yeah, I don't feel the pressure to. When you look at the money that your crop is going to bring in, the little bit that you've invested in seed to give yourself that assurance that even if this crop fails, I have something backing it up in the greenhouse is so worth it to give you that confidence to get those plants out there and boost your production season. This can also give you the boost you need in numbers. As a market gardener, the numbers that you work out on paper thinking you can sell this much a week to this many customers, so I'll plant this many, it rarely ever works out if you are going to plant that exact amount. It's going to put stress on you. It's much easier to plant extra, pick the best seedlings, and even after that, be selective with what you cut in the field. And even at market, if something does not look good, do not put it out. So planting a third to a half again as much extra for our farm at least has taken the pressure off and allowed us to pick the very best to get it to our customers. And they've been super happy with that. Next, I want to talk a little bit about getting your trays filled and ready to plant again. So in previous years, between my garden, which is right behind my greenhouse, I would simply toss the tray to the left. Seriously, I would toss it. And this mountain just grew of these 10, 20 trays with their inserts just stacking up super high. Some of them collecting water, some of them getting holes. And I would just toss it on my way to the greenhouse, grab another plant tray, and head back out to the garden. And it was just this cycle I got into, and the pile pretty much did not go down until fall. Now I have a little bit of a new system. I've got a wheelbarrow that I just dump my pre-mixed potting soil into, and it makes it very easy to simply fill those trays when I come out of the garden, and then I set them aside and they are ready to plant.
This is also a job sometimes that I can coax the kiddos into doing, because who doesn't love to play in the dirt and get dirty, right? So all they have to do is smush the soil into the trays. We used to do soil blocks, but for us, the inserts save a lot of time and they take out a lot of guesswork and they make it something that the kiddos can help and have fun with. So for us, this is just a really great option. As we wrap up this video, I want to talk a little bit more about the row cover that we had out there on the bed. I cut it about 45 feet for our beds that are about 38 feet long. I know that's a little on the generous side, but I like to have plenty of row cover for the ends of the bed to pin that down really well. So I have all different lengths in this red shed that's right by the garden, and they tend to get piled up and bundled up, and truth be told, I have a very hard time letting go of row cover even once it gets filled with holes. I always think that I will save it and use it for something, but I have learned that it is just going to become a problem getting caught on hoops and whatnot. So it's best, if it's ripped up, let it go and invest your energy into taking care of the good row cover you have left. For me, I store that in barrels with lids, but totes with lids would also work really well. Mice absolutely love this stuff, so it's really important, especially going into the winter season, that you keep it clean. So here is a sneak peek into my very overwhelmed garden shed right in the spring. We've got skis, we've got planting things, we've got coolers. Anyhow, just a little bit of a full disclosure here. Not every farm is as neat as a pin like you may believe it to be, but we all get the work done. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we use bricks to hold down the row cover. I have tried everything from T-posts to 2x4s and sandbags and firewood. And for me, having a lot of bricks to put on is better than a few heavy items. The sandbags, after a few years, they seem to kind of rot out and get thin on the bottom. So I had some, but that kind of fell by the wayside. And the T-posts, they stick into the row cover and they snag it, so they can work well in a pinch, but ultimately the bricks seem to be the safest and they're almost grippy on it due to their rough texture. These are also a great way to entertain the kiddos out in the garden. My kids love stacking them up and building structures out of them, so as long as you keep them out of the pathways that you want to till, they're pretty much no problem. Another thing you want to keep in mind when putting on your row cover and taking it off is where your predominant wind comes from. Mine comes from the north, so I leave the north side of my row cover. I leave the bricks on that one and I take it off from the other side. It seems to make it less of a hassle to get the row cover back on, because typically the wind is maybe working in my favor just the slightest bit, although it can be a frustrating job. Keeping the predominant wind in mind when you put your row cover on is always a good thing. If you have the advantage of living on your property before you put your garden beds in, this is a great way to keep in mind. I would have put my beds the opposite direction that they are had I known the predominant wind direction, but hey, we work with what we've got.
I hope you guys were able to pick up some fun tips from this video on how to keep your garden productive and to trust yourself and get those plants out there in the garden where they can keep growing and where it can give you room in your greenhouse for extra plants, and also give you time coming up to plant those plants you need to get out while these ones are just doing their thing under the row cover. So I hope you were inspired by this. I would love to hear what you guys thought of it. Leave some comments below on if you've tried it or what you guys do to get your plants out first thing in the spring. Also, please click the subscribe button and also like this video if you enjoyed seeing this. Hopefully you guys come back and get some more great tips from Full Measure Farm.